Welcome to the Whitetail Legacy Podcast.
Tomorrow is opening day.
This morning, didn't have a great hunt. Deer didn't move like usual.
We just got set up in the middle of this bedding thicket. Saving this spot from the rut. It's a nice, I think it's a nice buck.
Boom! Hits a 170.
That was money. I think he's down right over there, maybe 10 yards.
Whitetail Legacy Podcast, bringing you back to the hunt and leaving a legacy.
Baller rut.
Welcome to the Whitetail Legacy Podcast, coming at you with another legend, and this is a good one. We got a 200-inch mainframe 8.
Yes.
200 plus with 16 scoreable kickers. Is that what he said?
14.
14. I can't even count that high. So many. I think he had 22 stickers, mass out the wazoo, and tine length. Literally everything that you want in an 8-pointer.
And then more.
That you can ask for, yeah. And he lays out the story. A lot of good lessons. He ends it real solid. The ending was super solid, so make sure and stick around for that. Real good lesson there. Let's get into the people that make this possible. Start out with a title sponsor, VIP Veteran Broadheads, Combat Veteran. We've been talking about it. A lot of people have been laying down deer with it. Homie's got the chance to lay down a couple. I haven't got to send one yet. I'm pretty excited to hear what song comes out of it. I don't know if he switched it up from the national anthem or if it's going to be something else, but you got the VIP Veteran Broadhead shout-out.
I do. This week's shout-out is Bruce White. He was in the Army for 6 years, and he did 2 deployments overseas. Bruce, we appreciate your service and sacrificing for us here at Whitetail Legacy and the VIP family.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce. 2 deployments. That's a lot. We appreciate your service from all of us here. Let's get into Ingram's Outdoor Obsession. Ingram's buck mount got a little share there and kind of caught some traction. The freeze mount, a lot of people were loving that. A lot of people were like, I think this is going to be my next idea. I'm like, hell yes. That's awesome that people were when you get a deer with that much history and stuff, it's just like, do you just shoulder mount it or do you like bring it back to life, of something that you remember that deer doing? And that's what we tried to do. Me and you kind of got that idea together, you know what I mean? And I was like, that it worked out perfect. And when you look at him in the corner, he looks like he's like coming out of the wall about rubbing on that thing. So I thought it would be sick if you could mount it on the wall and then coming out. But he caught some traction. So all your taxidermy needs, Ingram's Outdoor Obsession, turkeys. I'm going to pick that mink up there eventually.
Are you?
There's going to be a black mink in here on the wall or something.
Well, you need to quit getting freezers so you run out of space eventually, so you have to get it out of there.
That's what I need to do. I just keep piling more freezers in the garage thinking that I'm going to kill more deer, but ain't working out. Let's get into Embry Custom Woodworking's ECW. Like I said, that outdoor range is in effect. I can't wait till this spring. Go down there, shoot some 3D targets. He said he's going to have some a battleship game for archery.
Oh, nice.
And then also he's going to do some theme stuff. Halloween, he's going to have some zombie targets, and Christmas he's going to have some specialized targets. So that's going to be cool.
Yeah.
Be cool to get down there and shoot with Jeff and just bring Roseville a little something they ain't got. So, let's get Scentlock. I don't know what they got coming out new for ATA. I know they got a bunch, so we'll be there. We'll let you guys know. Do you know you can't let anything out, can you? I don't know if we know anything.
It's just the infuse.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'm not gonna say.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So we'll let you guys know what they got coming out when we get to ATA. I think we should try to do a few more videos for our followers, especially Twitter. I think they really like that. We know Average Hunter's going to be out there putting in work, so we'll try to tag along with him and get some content ourselves. That's it, right?
That is.
All right, let's get in the show. All right, listeners, we got Justin Bear on. You guys might have seen his buck on social. I know it got a lot of shares. We were blown away by it. Killed an absolute giant buck called Stickers. We appreciate you coming on, Justin.
Hey, no problem.
We had a little bit of time change issues. I got to learn better on this, but real big shout out to you for working with us and playing this game. It's crazy. You think about talking on the phone for 45 minutes or an hour. It don't really happen unless you're really close friends, and we're just texting you out of the blue like, hey, you want to come on? So I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story.
Hey, I'll do my best. I'm a pretty shy person, so I'm not real big on talking in public. Or not necessarily, this isn't necessarily public, but I guess it will be eventually.
Yeah, that's what we say. We got a face for radio, so we can get into just a little bit about yourself, introduce you to the listeners.
Well, I've lived on this property my dad bought it in 1986. I was born and raised in Indianapolis, but my dad bought this in 86 as a weekend place, so we started coming here on the weekends. And then in 1995, we moved here full time, and I've lived here ever since. Since then, my siblings have all moved away, and my parents, so it's just me and my wife and my 3 kids that live here now. And it's been that way for about 15 years.
Nice. So this is in Ohio, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's in Tuscarawas County, Ohio, southeast corner.
Nice. And so the buck called Stickers. Go back to when you got the very first trail cam pic of him.
The very first, well, let me back up. The very first trail camera picture of him I got, where he actually had the stickers. I got one prior to that, but I didn't know it until later on, looking back when he was 2.5. And the only reason I knew it was him, looking back on it now, was he was running with the same buck that he showed up with the next year as when he became a 3.5-year-old, when he got his, I call it a man rack. They usually get their man rack at 3.5. They keep the same style from there on out. They just get bigger. So I actually got a picture of him at 2.5 running around with a buck that we called the back 88 point. And that's the one we were keeping an eye on. So that was in, say, like February of, what is this, 19? So in February of 16, when which they had their 2015 antlers on, right? So whatever. So now we get to August. I come back from Canada, from the camp I run up there, check my trail cameras, and I'm looking for back 88 pointer. So he comes through. Well, then I get a picture of this buck I don't recognize, because when he was a 2.5, he just looked like your regular run-of-the-mill, 115-inch 2.5-year-old. So I didn't recognize this buck, and it was kind of a blurry picture. And he was in velvet, which doesn't help as far as blurry, because he was walking. So, I don't know if I'm sure you've seen walking trail camera pictures of bucks in velvet. It's kind of blurry.
Yeah, it's hard to tell exactly what they are when they're walking, especially at night, man. It's real tough when you get that flare back at night. Yeah,
it's terrible. And this happened to be a daylight picture, but still, it was still blurry. And I've noticed he had all kinds of sticker points. Or at least I thought so at that point. Like I said, it was blurry. So it was just a passing glance. So I put some corn right in front of the camera. So within the next few days, I got some pictures of him, standing still, perfect daylight pictures. And that's when I nicknamed him Stickers, because then you could see the actual stickers. It wasn't the blur I was looking at. They were actual stickers. So I knew he had to be 3.5 because I'd never seen him before. And bucks don't just, 5.5, 6.5-year-old bucks don't just show up. Well, he looked like about a 180-inch buck that year, because he still had that little 3.5-year-old body, which makes a rack look enormous. It's like the Texas deer when you see them on video before guys kill them, because they got that little body. They look gigantic.
Yeah, they look wide as hell and tall, and then they get up there. Yeah. I'm like, oh man, okay, that's a nice buck.
Yeah, but major ground shrinkage when they get up on them. So I decided right then, okay, he's off the list. We're not killing him. I found his sheds. He was 165 as a 3-year-old, which was smaller than he looked on camera, but based on the fact I knew he was 3.5, I figured it was probably going to be about that. All my buddies thought that he was going to be, some of them said 200. I was like, come on, buddy, that's ridiculous. But they're not around deer every day. City boys. Anyhow. I hope this isn't live because I'm going to mess this all up.
No, this is perfect. Yeah.
Okay, good deal. So anyhow, especially my buddy Chad from Tennessee. He's an over exaggerator. He gets excited. I sent him the first trail camera picture of this buck standing next to the feeder. And I've got these gigantic feeders. And that's irrelevant. But anyhow, he texts me back, man, that thing will go 200 easy. That's a 17-inch G2. Like, okay, easy, buddy. It's not 17-inch G2, and it's not a 200-inch buck. It's a young buck we're not shooting. And of course, I got to convince him. It's a young buck. Just let's see what we can do with him. So I started feeding him that year. Well, once it got hard horn, I just kept it with the corn because it doesn't make a bit of a difference until about February. So starting in February, I started feeding him anything that he would eat that was high in protein, minerals, the whole deal, just to see what I could do with it because I knew he had potential. Anyhow, found his sheds 165. Next year rolls around. I know he's 4.5. He comes in. I watch him all summer. Took him off the list. My buddy Chad, that same Chad I'm talking about from Tennessee, he got him on video one day hunting up. We call it the back 80. That's an 80-acre parcel that is in the back of the property that it corners up with the main property here. But I pretty much put the back 80 off limits last year because I didn't want anybody to spook stickers to another property. Does that make sense? I didn't want to put pressure back there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great, man. If you're trying to grow a deer like that and see what it can do.
Yeah, and I knew he was already frequenting the other properties because it's only 80 acres. So anyhow, we didn't. I got to back up. At 3.5, I videoed him, and my buddy Chad's uncle videotaped him the same year with our phones while we were hunting. So 2018, last year, when he was 4.5, my buddy Chad, like I said, videotaped him. That was the only sighting we got of him other than trail camera, but it's because we weren't hunting back there. So I found his sheds. He was roughly 185. I scored his sheds. Couldn't believe the mass. He looked actually smaller at 4.5 on camera than he did at 3.5 because his body had gotten so much bigger. But he was actually 20 inches, scored 20 inches more roughly. So fast forward to this year. I guess it was this year I found his sheds, February of this year. So let's go up to June. I have to go up to camp in May, right? Because I got to go open everything up. I start getting guests coming in. Well, my son, who was a sophomore this year, had a football camp in June, a 1-week football camp. So I drove back from Canada with him, checked my trail cameras. Boom, there he was. You couldn't really see. He had his brow tines, maybe half grown. His G2s were just starting to grow, and his G3s were just popping a little bit, which I thought was crazy that early. It was like the first week of June. I'd never seen a buck that big that early, that developed. So we were home for a week. We go back up to Canada. So now we got to come back in July I think it was for days. I forget what it was, something for football. So we come back. I pull the camera cards, and now in July, his G2s are almost fully formed, and he's got, I can't remember how many stickers on his G2s between the two of them and his G3s. Let's see, it would have been, well, there ended up being, let's see, it was mainframe 8 with 22 points. So he had 14 scorable sticker points. And then he had a whole bunch of sticker points that weren't, they weren't an inch long. They weren't legally scorable. But it just looks ridiculous, So he's got 14 scorable sticker points plus probably 8 that are unscorable. And I'm just about shit my pants. And I don't know if you have to bleep that out or not, but
No. Yeah, we would have shit our pants too.
oh, I couldn't believe it. So I've got, and it's, if I could tell you the story in person and show you the pictures that I saw, I mean, you could get the full concept of what I'm saying. He didn't have any stickers in June, but in July, a month later, it would blow your mind. So I decided then that I'll be honest with you, I would rather have given him another year, or maybe even I'll be perfectly honest. I'd rather he just died of old age, and I kept finding his sheds. But I knew if a neighbor got pictures of him the way he looked this year, they had to quit their job to hunt him because he looked that big. Last year he was 185, but he didn't really look. It wasn't like a. I mean, to most people, it'd be a holy shit buck, but you wouldn't. It wouldn't. You wouldn't become obsessed with it. This year you would have. Looking at the trail camera pictures. So anyhow, I decided it was just time to put him on the list, even though he's only 5.5. Am I going too fast for you?
No, yeah, this is perfect.
Okay, so I decided I set my stand up there. It's the only stand I was going to hunt on the back 80. I was only going to hunt it in the right wind. I got a big feeder back there to feed them year round. It holds 2,700 pounds of whatever you put in it, corn, protein feed, whatever. But I put it far enough out in the food plot that you can't hunt it because I don't want to put pressure on it. And, and I talked myself into hunting over it and spooking him. So what I did was I set a trough over by my over by my stand away from my feeder, just to kind of draw the deer over that were coming to my food plot and coming to the protein, just close enough where I could get a shot at them, so I could get them, perfectly in front of me, perfect broadside shot. When I set my stand up, I tied ropes to the trees around me and kind of pulled them down around me. So I had just one little hole to shoot through, because I knew there'd be, I envisioned there being 20 deer there when I was trying to draw back on stickers when it came in.
Yeah.
So I tried to get it all set up that way. So I hunted there. I couldn't hunt there Saturday, opening day, because the wind was wrong. So Sunday I hunt there. Bunch of does come in, bunch of bucks, nice bucks, young bucks, big whatever. But it wasn't, stickers never came. It was hot as hell. So I left, got out of there. I think it was my buddy Chad from Tennessee was in town that weekend. And he, heard the deal. I said, you can hunt him too, because they help out with some of the deer feed. My buddy Greg from Michigan helps out. And then my buddy Chad's uncle, who's from Alabama, he helps out too. Well, Greg already told me ahead of time. He said, look, you put in all the time and effort, you hunt him. Well, my buddy Chad was like, well, you have done all that. You have done all that, but I think I'm going to go ahead and try to. Anyhow, long story short, he hunted there the next day because the wind was right. I hunted a stand on the food plot where I could watch and still have a chance. But he didn't show up. It was another one of those deals that, I don't know if you followed the weather at the beginning of this year, but I don't know how it was in Illinois, but here in Ohio it was pretty hot. So that was opening weekend. So all week goes by. Nothing as far as wind-wise. I couldn't hunt it. Friday was the first day the wind was going to be right, but my son had a football game Friday night. And that same night, there was a cold front coming through. It was supposed to cool off. Now I got to back up again. I was getting pictures of stickers every single day in velvet before dark. Every day. Well, then he went hard-horned. And looking back on it, probably had something to do with the heat too. But he was just coming at night or right after dark, but he was coming, 3 or 4 times throughout the night, and he's probably going to bed and down. Well, then when he went hard-horned, he would sometimes, like once every couple days, he would show up before dark and then not come back for 2 days. Like I wouldn't get a picture of him, which was unheard of, based on the summertime. So anyhow, I get that Friday night, I'm at the football game. Next morning, I get up, I do my normal routine. I get up, I fill my bags of feed, I go out, feed all my spots, pull my cards, come back. Sure enough, he was there before dark on Friday. Well, I figured now he's going to probably disappear for 2 days. That's kind of the pattern he was on. But Saturday, with the wind was supposed, I could hunt it. And I hadn't been able to hunt it. And well, at that point, it had been a week. So I thought, well, I might as well go hunt it. The wind's right. It's cooled off now. It's, it was 20 degrees cooler than it had been 2 days before that. So I'm sitting in the stand. I've got very little confidence that anything's going to happen because I just figured he was going to do is disappear for 2 days routine. Sitting there, had what I thought was a great wind, but it must have been swirling. I don't know how, but I had a doe early out in the food plot, doe and 2 fawns, snort and run off. I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense because as she's snorting at me, I can feel the wind blowing from her to me. She runs off, 20 minutes goes by, some more deer start coming back out. I've got probably, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 does right there at the trough in front of me. Several of them out in the food plot, which was 100 yards away, let's say roughly. And then some younger bucks came in. Well, they started getting skittish again, so the wind must have swirled again. They start getting skittish. The does run down the hill behind me, maybe 40 yards into the woods. And those bucks start heading back towards the trail where Stickers usually comes out 95% of the time. So, you start messing with yourself like, okay, they're, even if Stickers is coming, they're going to run past him and spook him. And, you start doubting everything. Just human nature, I guess. So I'm watching down there, there's no deer. Now there's no deer around. They've all spooked. And it's getting closer to dark. So I'm staring down I got my stand set up so that I don't have to get up. I hold my bow in my left hand like most people. So I set it so I don't have to stand up and spin around or anything like that. I can shoot from sitting down. All I got to do is lean back, draw my bow, lean forward a little bit past the limbs I pulled down, and I'm good to go. So anyhow, I'm looking down to my right, expecting him to come from there if he's going to come. So I look out in front of me, out past straight in front of me beyond the trough is another wood line. It's a little bit thicker. And I see a doe come out. She kind of pokes her head out of the thicket and looks over at the trough. Well, the does behind me that had ran earlier were stomping, and it was real dry out. They were stomping in the leaves down there. You could hear them. So she kind of came out, poked her head out, heard them stomping, and just kind of slowly backed into the thicket. So I thought, okay, I got to remember she's there because, I don't want to get busted drawing later if Stickers happens to show. Well, what I thought was her popped her head back out, but a little bit to the right of where it was previously, maybe 5 yards to the right, but now it was behind some of those branches I pulled down. But in my mind, it was the same doe. So I didn't pay any attention to it. I just kind of mentally told myself, remember she's there so she doesn't screw you up later. Still watching to my right, what I think is this doe is walking right towards the trough, but behind those branches. It's obviously a deer, but beyond that, I couldn't tell. And it ended up being Stickers. And he got within 2 steps of walking out. He came right at me, and then he had to make a 90-degree turn to my left, which would have been his right, to get out from behind the branches and get to the trough. So right at the last second, I'm looking through those leaves, trying to keep an eye on this, what I think is a doe. I'm like, holy shit, I think this thing has antlers. So I got my binocs up. Now, keep in mind, since he's been hard-horned, even the daylight pictures, the rare ones I was getting, was that fine line between end of shooting light and when your infrared kicks on. So it was still daylight, but your infrared kicks on, so that all the antlers look white. So I'm imagining him walking in with this big, gigantic white rack. Turns out he had a real dark rack. So even when I saw a little bit of antlers, I didn't think it was him because it wasn't dark. The antlers weren't, I'm sorry, because they were dark, not white. But I put my binocs up and looked, and it only took a second, I knew it was him. So I got this bino harness. All I had to do was just kind of let go of my binocs, and I clipped my release on. He took a couple steps out from behind the tree limbs, and those does were still acting crazy down below me. He couldn't see him because the hill dropped off, but he kept looking. And it kept freaking me out because in my mind, he was looking at me. So I'm shitting my pants because I know 3 years of time and money, and, I'm getting ready to blow this because once I jump him, this is it. He's going to come at night, and that'll be the end of it. Because it's happened to me before. Not with him, but with other bucks that I was after. So he'd take 2 steps, and then he'd snap his head over at me. I'd be like, oh, God, he's got me. And then he'd relax. And every time he'd relax and put his head forward to take another step towards that trough, I'd just get a little bit more ready. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Deer hunters know what I'm talking about. Just get a little more settled in. So finally, I drew back, and when I did, same deal. We snapped his head back, and I'm sure we've all been there. You draw back, the deer looks at you, you freak out. You think, okay, he's going to just run immediately. So you start doing that deal where you try and push your pin into the vitals and squeeze the shot off. Well, I started to do that, and I've made the mistake multiple times before. And at the last second, I just caught myself. I was like, don't freak out. He might be looking at these does. Anyhow, long story short, he was looking, not really long story short, it's kind of a long story. He was looking at those does, and he relaxed again. I settled the pin in, thumped him. I texted my son, who was hunting on the other end of the property, who actually had texted me as Stickers was standing there. He texted me, I shot a doe. I didn't know this till afterwards, obviously, because I didn't check my phone. But he had just shot a doe with his bow, with his compound. So anyhow, I texted him back. I said, I just shot Stickers. He said, I'm on my way. So I texted him back. I'm paraphrasing. This is an exact text as far as my recollection, because I was pretty wound up. So I said, grab a flashlight. So he said, did you get him? I said, I don't know, grab a flashlight. So I hear the four-wheeler come. When I heard the four-wheeler coming, I got down out, found my arrow, and I was going to start tracking, but I wanted him to be with me because he's been a part of this whole ordeal. So I waited on him, and I thought I heard him crash too prior to that. But I've shot 5 bucks where I thought I heard him crash, and then tracked him for 2 miles. So I wasn't counting on what I heard. So he showed up. He forgot the flashlights. He pulls up. He goes, Dad, you better not be messing with me. I said, son, I swear to you, I shot Stickers. I don't know how good I hit him, but I'm not messing with you. I shot him. Because I play a lot of jokes with the kids. That I wouldn't mess around with. But anyhow, he didn't know that. So we've got our cell phones, right? So we're tracking this 200-inch buck with freaking cell phone. And with the cell phone, you can't hardly see blood. So I was finding a drop, and then a drop, and then a drop. And I'm like, oh, God. It's got to be a gut shot or a crappy shot. Because if it was a good shot, it'd be spraying everywhere. Which, looking back, it was. I just couldn't see it. So my son's behind me, and he's got his phone out, too. And he's videotaping. And I didn't even know this. So I'll drop. And then he'd take his phone and shine up, too. And all of a sudden, I decided I went like maybe 30 yards, and I was just finding those drops, like I said. And I thought, you know what? I'm not doing the same thing I've done before where I jump them and, track them forever. I've done it before, too, where I've backed out and found them dead from a gut shot right there where they first bedded down. So anyhow, we're walking. He taps me on the shoulder. He goes, Dad, I see a deer up there. I see an eyeball. Now we're walking down this 4-wheeler trail, and on the left-hand side of the 4-wheeler trail is maybe a 20-foot wide strip of thick stuff, and then my food plot. And on the right-hand side of the 4-wheeler trail is bedding area that I've hinge cut for the last 10 years, every other year. So it's thicker than snot. So he goes, Dad, I see an eyeball, and it's just off the 4-wheeler trail and that thick stuff. And so I shined with my light, and sure enough, there's an eyeball. But it was so thick you couldn't tell if it was a deer laying there dead, you could see its eyeball, or a live deer. Well, all of a sudden then it turns and looks at us. I was like, oh, shit. I've gut shot him. We got to get out of here somehow without jumping. Once we jump him now, who knows how far he's going to go. So I kind of just real slowly, I didn't move my light at all. I didn't want to be too flashy with it. So I just kind of slowly lowered it and turned at the same time. As I did, Stickers was laying there dead. The light panned on him, and he was like 3 steps from us.
Man.
He had to run down that trail. You know how they stand there for a second, and then they kind of do their flop thing, their last hurrah. Well, he must have just pushed himself into that thick stuff. But sure as hell, there he was right there.
Wow, man. Now, I would have been freaking, too. If I seen that eyeball move, I'd have been like, all right, we're in trouble.
Oh, man, my gut fell. I was like, oh shit, here we go again. But it turned out to be a good shot.
Nice.
And he
man.
only went maybe 50 yards.
Wow, man, we tried tracking with cell phone lights. We had
Yeah.
a couple lights, but we were using our cell phones too. You can't see anything with that. So
No.
yeah, you literally can't see
No, you see it
nothing. Yeah.
drop here and there.
But man, when you think you put a good shot on a 200-inch deer, you're like, well, we gotta find it. I mean, so what did you end up scoring him?
I rough scored him that night. You know, as soon as I got him back to the house, that night I before I even found him, I text Chad, my buddy Greg, said, hey, I just shot stickers. And they were pumped up. So anyhow, the word got out that I had shot him. So like my brother-in-law showed up. He brought people I didn't even know. Other people showed up. So anyhow, I rough scored him that night, me and the neighbor, at 210. I scored him with a cell phone charging cord. That's what I used for my tape. And then obviously a tape measure to measure the cell phone cord. And that's what I came up with that night was 210. But he ended up being 206 and 5/8. Guy Ed Waite from Buckmasters drove over from Dayton maybe a month later and scored him.
Hey, that's pretty good with the
I was saying,
phone cord.
That's closer than we were
Yeah.
when we did freeze.
Yeah, so props to you on the phone cord, man. That's a stat move. I would have never thought about that, but that worked out great. But
Well, I couldn't find string and whatever the hell it is it takes to score him. So I said, well, this will work.
yeah.
Work in a pinch.
Yeah, so I mean, he's a mainframe 8 and he's 206 and some change. That's just insane. Them sticker points everywhere, you know.
Yeah, it's to see the rack in person is incredible. Like his GU2s are bigger around than the main beams of my biggest buck prior to that.
Wow. I knew
My biggest
on
buck prior to
the
that was
pictures.
160.
I knew on the pictures the mass was just incredible. I mean, and it's hard to take it all in a picture. You know, you're like, man, there's a lot going on. But I've always liked mainframe 8s, but he doesn't even look like a mainframe 8. You can't even tell
No.
what he is because you're like, what do I got going on here? So I'm sure when
Yeah.
you walked up on him, you were like, holy smokes. So
Well, when I finally got him in my hands and held him up for Austin to look at, I was like, when you put your hands on his main beams, the pictures didn't do him justice as far as mass. It blew my mind. I've never around here, the deer I've killed on this property have never had mass like that.
it's crazy. It
It's unreal.
seems like most of the time you either get kickers and tine length or mass and nothing else. And that one
Right.
had mass, tine length, and kickers. It had it all. So that's what it takes.
Yeah,
to,
he had the whole package.
Yeah.
I would say his left beam is thicker than the tree that you're right by. It's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you look at it like that and compare it, people that look for that kind of stuff can tell it's got some serious mass. Other people that can't really do that have to actually hold it in their hand before they realize how much mass it had.
Yeah. It's hard to tell from pictures on mass sometimes, but when you get something in your head, you put it on your hand, you can't wrap your hands around it. You're like, okay, yeah, this has got
We got something here.
Yeah, we got something here. But man, that's awesome that you got to track it with your son like that. You know, that's something we like to do is get our kids out there, and I'm sure that's the biggest deer he's ever seen. Probably the biggest deer you've ever had the opportunity to hunt and track. So that was a special moment you got to spend right there. That's something you neither will forget that eyeball and then the turning and then he's right there. You know what I mean? So.
Oh yeah, that's burned into my memory. That it was pretty wild.
How far apart were his sheds from when he was 3.5 to 4.5 where you found him?
Where I found him?
Yeah, were they kind of in the same general area, or were they by that bedding area?
They were okay at 3.5. Both years he would drop one shed, and then 2.5 weeks later he dropped the other, which is odd for a big buck like that to carry one for that amount of time. So even though he dropped them at 3.5, he dropped them 2 weeks apart. They were only probably 200 yards from each other on the same trail, going from the bedding to where I was feeding them there. So then that was on, let's say, it would have been on the southwest corner of that back 80 parcel. So then at 4.5, I found same deal. I shed them 2.5 weeks apart. Those I only found like 100 yards from each other, and that was on on the southeast corner of that property. So they were one ridge away from each other. The between the 2 years, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. He really liked the winter there, and it seemed like when he got older, he stayed there a lot more because you said 4.5. You only had one sighting of him. So
Well, only because we didn't hunt up there.
Oh yeah, that's right. You didn't hunt the back 80, which was really
Pro-
was yeah it was
really smart idea.
yeah really smart. If you're trying to grow a deer and you got the restraint to not chase something that you believe is 180.
Yeah, or you have the land and you can still hunt and do everything that you want to do, but really just save that deer for the next year. That's a luxury not a lot of people have.
It's pretty epic. So.
Yeah, you're right about that. But it's if everybody followed that, and the problem is not everybody will. But if everybody just hunted deer based on their age, we would all kill big bucks every year.
Yeah, I believe that too.
And some people hunt for different reasons, and that's fine. All I'm saying is, if it were in a perfect world, if everybody waited until they were at least 5.5, we would kill. Especially out there in Illinois.
Imagine the rut with the 3.5-year-olds. You know what I mean? If no one kills a 3.5, it'd be insane. So.
And that's another thing too. I've got several older bucks than him on the property. That back 88 pointer, he's still alive. My son actually missed him on Monday, the Monday prior to the Saturday when I killed stickers. He missed him. He was trying to get in that stand. It was in the morning, and on his way there, he missed the back 88 point out of the same spot.
Wow.
But anyhow, I think the older bucks suppressed stickers a lot because he never broke a sticker off in 3 years, so he wasn't fighting, and he wasn't a roamer. Like, I never got pictures of him anywhere else on the property.
Wow.
And I think that helped a lot too, as far as him conserving energy all fall and all winter for him to grow even bigger the next year.
Yeah.
So there is definitely something to be said for having older age class structure on your property to suppress the younger bucks from running themselves to death.
After you did kill him, did any of your neighbors come out that they had pictures or anything like that?
Yes. Yep. A guy who I haven't met to this day, but I've been texting back and forth with. He hunted. There's a guy that owns the property all the way around me, Gary Kimball. He owns 90% of my property line. He owns. There's just a small spot on the south end of that back 80. It's a rectangular piece of property and the narrow is the north and south borders of the narrow ends. The shorter ones. And other than Gary Kimball, there's one guy that just owns that south border. So after I killed stickers, and the pictures just went freaking crazy, right? So he texted me and said, "Hey, 2 years ago and last year I used to hunt there." Basically, he just stopped hunting for personal reasons last year there at Kimball's. But for 15 years prior to that, he was pretty much the only person that bow hunted it. So anyhow, he contacted me and said, "Hey, I've got stickers. I got pictures of that buck." I think he had a different name for it. Then he started sending me pictures of him. Then he started sending me pictures. This guy I never met before or even heard of. I've seen his stands before because I can see his stands from the back 80 when I drive up there. So he sent me pictures of bucks that he'd killed that I had pictures of that just appeared, and he had pictures of stickers. And
wow,
it was a weird feeling for somebody else to send me pictures of what I considered my deer.
Yeah. That's like me and homie were like, man, this deer we're chasing, everybody knows about it. The whole county. Yeah. But after we killed it, no one had any pictures.
Nope.
You know what I mean? So it's crazy. But I always wondered that, like, how, did he walk past that other guy's stand? Did he miss him when he was 4? I mean, it's just insane to think it all worked out in your favor, and you got the shot opportunity on him. That's something I want to talk about. Was you set the stage perfect. We don't have to bait. We can't bait in Illinois, but the fact that you brought all those branches in and leaving one shot is smart in my mind, because you are going to have a bunch of deer there feeding, you would think. So, I mean, even if we have 2 or 3 deer, it's hard to maneuver, and I couldn't imagine having 20 at 25 yards.
Yeah, it was. I try to take every possible screw up out of the equation. Even hunting, I know people consider it unethical to hunt him over bait, but this is a 200-inch deer. I'm not taking the chance on just getting lucky and happen to sit in the right spot. I can't hunt scrape lines here or rub lines if I'm after a specific buck, because I've got so many mature bucks that there's literally thousands of rubs on this property right now and hundreds and hundreds of scrapes. So I couldn't just go sit on a rub line or a scrape line. And what I'm saying is I want to take all of whether people think it's unethical or not to shoot him over bait. I want to make sure I had a perfect shot at him in a spot that I could get into and out of without spooking him. Because there's no rub line or scrape line on my property I can hunt without at least jumping some deer to get there.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. And the bad thing is about for you is if you don't bait and your neighbors do, then you're out of the game. You know what I mean? So,
Yep.
you got to put all the money and effort into baiting to be able to hold the deer, because if not, they're going to go to the neighbors who is baiting. So me and homie, we are, we're not against it at all. If we could bait in Illinois, we'd be baiting tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it is whatever the law is it's free game in our mind. You hunt however you want to hunt. But I don't think it's unethical at all. We know a lot of people that have killed absolute giant deer over bait. It doesn't make it any less or any more, you know what I mean? It's just they can do it and we can't, you know what I mean? So
yeah, it just definitely takes some of the well, I hate to say this, but it takes some of the hunting skill out of it, obviously. But leading up to that took a lot of, like, I had it set up so I would drive my four-wheeler up there every day, feed them, and drive home. Same time every day. Boom, 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 boom. Every time for 3 years. When I was home, when I wasn't in Canada. When I was in Canada, I had my big feeder. So my idea was they get used to that. So the day I killed stickers, I had my son drive me up. I put the feed out, and I got my stand. They're no more the wiser. If I'd have walked up there, I'd have been.
yeah.
It wouldn't have happened. I might
I
not
agree
have
with
jumped
that.
him, but I would have jumped deer that he would have jumped, or I would have jumped deer that would have jumped him eventually. It just would have put everybody on edge, deer wise.
Yeah, I agree with that too. If we go check our cams in the truck, deer be there in 20 minutes after we leave. If we check them on the foot walking around, won't be there anything for a day or two. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
they
that's
get
exactly
used to
right.
that. I don't think they associate them with humans. You know what I mean? They just associate it with noise that they, if they get used to it and it doesn't hurt them for the 100th and 50th time they've heard it, they just associate
Exactly.
it with, okay, that four-wheeler sound is food. You know what I mean? So,
Yep.
but yeah, we know a lot of people that try to do that same time, same, spot. And it's almost natural to them, like coming to a cornfield and there's a combine going. You know what I mean? They don't really
exactly.
know.
And I don't just bait them. I supplemental feed them all year long. It's not like when bow season's over, I quit putting food out. I keep it going year round. So
Yeah, trying to keep the herd.
yeah, it's an advantage, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. We, like I
It
said,
worked out.
we would do it tomorrow. Just being able to get all the trail cam pictures would be so epic. You know what I mean? Just to know what's on your property and consistently get those pictures. Like, okay, this buck is still here. He didn't get shot on the neighbors. Like we had a buck this year, a giant, high 160s class deer that was literally 300-400 yards from us, was killed 300 or 400 yards from us, and we have one set of trail cam pictures of him.
Yep.
And he was probably on our property more than we even knew, but we just didn't have the trail cams in the spot that he was running. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
if we would have had a bait site, we would have been like, okay, this deer's still alive. Let's hunt him. We were thinking, oh, that's deer's 2 miles
Yeah.
away. You know what I mean? We're not even making a game plan to hunt him when in actuality he was there the whole time. So.
Yep. It definitely makes a difference, and it keeps young bucks alive. Like even the 3.5, I rarely lose a buck to the neighbors, because when even the deer that bet on the neighbors, as soon as they get up, they're headed to my property.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, that's good.
So they
man.
get here and they're safe once they get here.
Yeah, for sure. Is there anything that you learned after you killed him, that you didn't know before, like maybe where he was bedded or anything like that?
I learned most of what I learned shed hunting. Like there were beds that I made specifically for him that I guarantee you he bedded in, only because I knew the general area he was bedding because of the trails that I found his sheds on. So there's only certain areas back there, basically my whole property, there's only certain areas that bucks bed in. Like there's certain areas that the does will bed in, and the does will kind of bed kind of anywhere, but not anywhere. Bucks have a specific set of circumstances that determine where, and this goes back 20 years when I was a little kid. There's still areas on my property I remember from when I was a little kid jumping bucks up out of. But anyhow, there's a certain, and I don't know what the circumstances are, but there's a certain circumstances, at least here in Ohio, in this area of Ohio, that a buck prefers to bed on. So I knew on the back 80, the two areas, well, I knew the one area for sure when he was 3.5 because I found his sheds near there. So I went in there and built a bunch of beds for him around some other beds that I'd found just to sweeten it up a little bit. Well, then I found his sheds at 4.5 on the other side of the back 80 in another area that once I actually sat down in the buck bed that I found near his shed, I got to looking around and I was like, oh, well, I can see why he'd bed here. It makes perfect sense. But anyhow, so yes, I did know, generally speaking, where he was bedding, only because there's only certain areas where on that back 80 and other parts of my property, there's only certain areas where the bucks bed.
Yeah, we can see that too. Is if you find those sheds, it tells you so much of the story. Not only that the deer is still alive, but okay, he's here in the winter. You know, where was he in the summer? Is he a winter summer buck? Is he one that's going to stick around? And if you can find the sheds in the winter, you know if they're not on food and they're in thick stuff, you pretty much found them in his bedding, or close, because they're just not going to move that far in the winter.
Yep, that's exactly right.
To get
You're
to
exactly
the food.
right.
So when you find that, you're
too,
like, okay, I got a good idea where this buck's at.
Yeah. Yep. And then it's just a matter of trying to intercept him, which is not easy.
Damn near impossible most of the time. But you've been talking about it. So you run a camp in Canada?
Yep, a fishing camp, and then I have bear hunters and moose hunters that come in towards the fall.
Sweet.
We need
Man.
to get on a bear hunt,
Yeah, I
real
know.
stat.
Bear hunt would be sweet. Canada bears, do they taste pretty decent?
They're how do I say this? They're not like an Ohio corn-fed deer, but they're
I've never had bears, so I'm interested. But
well, I can be honest with you. At my camp, don't come there if you just want some tasty bear meat, because there's other places that have agriculture that I'm sure that they taste a lot better. But the whole experience there is, and really, bear hunt's only about 0.1% of what I do there. It's almost exclusively for the fishermen.
yeah, I looked at some pictures, man. You guys are knocking them down out there, so that's pretty sweet. But I know a lot of people that I went to high school with. There's a couple families that flew up to Canada and fished, so it'd definitely be an adventure.
Oh, the fishing up there it's incredible.
All right, man. Well, we appreciate you coming on and telling us a story of stickers. I was curious right when I seen the picture online, and I appreciate you coming on and letting other people hear this story and getting the mystery out of the buck, just a picture of a buck. You know what I mean? So it's cool.
Well, the bottom line is, if you try and do if you try and do everything you can possibly, do it correctly on your piece of property. Doesn't matter if it's 20 acres or 280 acres, which is what we have here. Eventually, the stars will align and you'll grow a giant.
And that's a good way to
It's
end
just
it
a matter
right
of
there.
time.
Yeah.
Just got to do everything right. It's like everything else in life. You get it out of it what you put into it. So if you half-ass it, you're going to have half-assed deer. Period.
Yeah.
Unless you're some lucky guy that has the right property in the right location, which is very, very rare.
All right, man. The message right at the end really got me, man. We say that a lot. You know, if you do what you got to do, you do it to the best of your abilities, eventually a big deer will come by and give you an opportunity.
What did Paul say the theme's been? Do whatever it takes?
Do whatever it takes. Yeah, we had a listener that shouted in and said, "You've been saying that a lot." I'm like, well, me and homie been talking. That's the only way that we know how to kill deer. It's just do whatever it takes, you know?
Yeah.
We tried so much new stuff, and some of it worked and some of it didn't, and we know where we messed up, and you just got to do what works. Even if it sounds dumb or don't sound right, if it works,
yeah, who's to say that it's...
Just do it. So we really enjoyed this episode. We're going to be coming at you with some more legends. We are going to be recording a few episodes at ATA also with some special guests. So excited to bring those to you. Deer season's almost over for a lot of people, so we appreciate the listeners that are still here clicking the play button and still enjoying this ride with us.
And do not forget, we are putting out at least one blog a week on the website. And we're really not holding back there.
No.
A lot of it's all of our content, but a lot of video on there that's raw. A lot of trail cam pics that we don't put on social are being used in the blog. So if you guys want to see some of these deer, be sure to check it out when we release a blog.
Yeah, a lot of cool stuff. We've been really digging in. Homie's been kicking ass on the blogs recently, and it's a good place to. I didn't think I would like reading, but I enjoy reading.
Yeah.
Sometimes, just you get to use your own imagination a little bit, and you get to think about it, and instead of just listen to us talk over and over and over.
So whitetaillegacypodcast.com. There'll be a blog button up at the top. You'll be able to research or go back and look at any of the blogs we've done. And
there's got to be
all the podcast episodes are in there. Yeah, there's a bunch.
So, all right, well, get out there, try to leave a legacy, and Whitetail Legacy's out.